Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something quite significant, how Western media has pictured Arabs and Muslims. It's, it's a really important topic for understanding a lot of things around us.
Absolutely.
And our starting point is the material from a recent film program and exhibition, Planet of the Arabs, which ran late last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just looking back, was it? It was trying to unpack how these portrayals have, changed over time.
Exactly. That's the core of it.
So that's what we want to do for you today, kind of unspool this long history, give you a clear but deep sense of it all.
Yeah, and what that Planet of the Arabs material shows right away is that, look, these negative Western ideas about Arabs, they're not new. Not at all. We're talking about a history that goes way back to the very first times the West and the Arab and Muslim worlds really encountered each other.
Okay, so let's follow that. We're going further back than just, say, movies and TV then.
No, definitely. The exhibition material points to the Middle Ages, even the Crusades, as really foundational periods for these ideas.
Wow. It's kind of strange to think that ideas from that long ago could still be floating around today.
It is, but the sources really emphasize this kind of stubborn persistence. This way the West has had of seeing Arabs and Muslims as, well, fundamentally different, like an alien other.
An other, yeah. Or even an enemy sometimes.
Or often an enemy, yes. And what's fascinating, and what the exhibition explores, is how that basic idea has lasted. Even while the specific ways people talk about it, the language they use, that's changed a lot.
Okay, so that leads us right into storytelling, doesn't it? And, over the last century or so, the massive impact of film and media.
Huge impact. The materials argue pretty strongly that these media forms didn't just sort of hold up a mirror to stereotypes that were already there. No, they were actively shaping them, amplifying them, creating what sources call these near-mythological stereotypes. Really makes you pause.
It really does. So think about the very beginning of movies, early 20th century.
Edison in the U.S.,
yeah.
Pathé and Gaumont over in France.
Yeah.
The exhibition highlights how they set up this very specific look, this narrative for the Arab world. It was all about the mystical land.
Oh, okay.
Think about the music cues they use, or certain visual things like swirling veils, specific kinds of melodies designed to immediately say, this is different, this is mysterious oriented.
Yeah, I can picture it. Those images that maybe you associate with older films set there, the endless deserts.
Right.
And then suddenly these perfect tropical oases. And the characters, genies popping out of lamps.
Magic carpets.
Magic carpets, yeah. And those thieving bandits always hiding somewhere.
And don't forget this sort of more problematic figures. The exhibition points it out clearly. The decadent sultans lounging around. The scheming sheiks, plotting in corners.
Yeah.
And the harem girls, always sensual, rarely with anything to say, in a very specific, very narrow picture.
It really is almost like a caricature, isn't it? And at the exhibition points out, okay, maybe you still see bits of that sometime.
Occasionally, yeah. And older stuff or animation, maybe.
But there's been a big shift, a really significant one, towards a different set of stereotypes. And this is where it gets, I think, really relevant to today.
Absolutely. That whole mystical land thing, it hasn't vanished completely, but it's definitely been pushed aside by a newer dominant myth,
which is
the Arab or Muslim as a terrorist. That's become, incredibly prevalent in recent decades.
Right, a huge shift.
And the source material suggests this move from mystical to terrorist wasn't just random. It tracked Western anxieties, moving from maybe a fascination with something exotic but possibly threatening to this direct fear. Fear of violence, instability, seen as coming from the Arab and Muslim world.
And often linked to specific events, presumably, which the media then picks up and runs with.
Precisely. It wasn't organic. It was often a reaction, amplified and kind of cemented by media coverage and political narratives.
And it's not just portrayed as a threat over there, is it? The material emphasizes that this narrative often shows Arabs and Muslims planning destruction, not just from the Middle East, but from inside Western countries, like in quiet suburbs, which makes the threat feel much more immediate.
Exactly. It plays on those enemy within fears,
Yeah.
Which helps solidify this image. Arabs and Muslims as this inherent danger to the West. It's a potent change in representation.
So the Planet of the Arabs program, it wasn't just talking in generalities. It looked at actual films, specific works. Like it included Real Bad Arabs, how Hollywood vilifies a people. That title alone tells you something. And the Planet of the Arabs film itself.
Very direct titles. And it's important, the program also brought in the theory behind analyzing this stuff. They included Orientalism explained and bits from Edward Said's work on Orientalism.
Okay, so Said's ideas were central.
Yeah, because he really laid out how Orientalism is this Western way of thinking about and often controlling the East based on prejudice, not reality. It helps you understand these aren't just random bad movies. They're part of a bigger system.
That makes sense. And there were other films, too, maybe more unexpected ones, like The Sheik and I. That sounds like it's playing with those old stereotypes.
Good point. It likely does engage with them, maybe critiques them, flips them. The program wasn't pushing just one message.
So a mix of styles, too.
Definitely. You had documentaries like Five Broken Cameras, which is incredibly personal, direct. And then more conceptual films like Introduction to the End of an Argument, which probably pulls apart these representations themselves. That variety is key. Real Bad Arabs, for instance. It systematically shows you the repetitive tricks Hollywood uses.
Got it. So if we try to pull the main threads together from all this, what's the big takeaway from the Planet of the Arabs exhibition? What should you really hold on to?
I think the absolute core message is how consistently, for centuries really, Western media has worked to, well, dehumanize Arabs and Muslims.
Dehumanize how?
By constantly painting them as fundamentally different, as somehow outside the sphere of Western values, Western understanding. Incomprehensible, almost.
And that's not just some academic point about old movies, is it? These portrayals, whether they're the old chic kind or the modern terrorist kind, they actually do something in the real world.
They absolutely do. They feed into this perception, this ongoing sense that Arabs and Muslims are inherently other.
Right.
And that othering, it has real consequences for how people are seen, how they're treated, how we understand events in that part of the world. It shapes perceptions, which kind of leads to a question for you, listening.
Yeah.
What is the real world impact? How do these stereotypes, maybe ones you've absorbed without even realizing it, affect your own understanding, your interactions, consciously or not?
So let's recap this deep dive. We've journeyed through this, frankly, quite long and often uncomfortable history of how the West has portrayed Arabs and Muslims.
From the Middle Ages right up to now.
We've seen how film and media weren't just passive observers, but active creators of stereotypes.
Big time.
And we noted that major shift from the sort of mystical figure to the much more contemporary and damaging terrorist image.
Yeah. And that brings us to a final thought, something for you to maybe chew on.
Okay.
How do these representations, these images built up over time, actually filter into how we understand other cultures?
Yeah.
How we interpret news about global events, maybe in ways we aren't even aware of.
And following from that, what's our role, our responsibility as people who consume media? Should we be looking more critically at the stories we're told, maybe actively seeking out different, more authentic voices?
It's definitely something worth thinking about long after this conversation ends.